What is up, my loves? Welcome back to another episode of the Fully Alive podcast. My name is Stephanie Elsperman. I am your host, and this is the space where we dive into all things igniting your life's purpose, becoming magnetic as fuck to your desires, and overall taking bold and courageous action to create a life that makes you feel fully alive from the inside out. This is for my career-driven high performers and entrepreneurs who are done just checking the boxes of life and creating success just because they're good at something or they feel like they should, and instead want to spend their energy creating a movement that magnetizes millions through their work. You want to have that long-lasting impact and the fulfillment that comes with it. You have come to exactly the right place. So if you're ready to step into your life's purpose and therefore become more confident than you probably ever have in your life, welcome to the podcast. I'm so beyond excited to have you here. This episode is a super fun one. I have on one of my nearest and dearest friends, Laura Patricia Martin, and we have a girl chat. This is a segment called Unplugged that we both do once a month on our podcast. We publish it in both places. And it was birthed because we would have these FaceTimes and just go deep into the things that we were learning in these different topics. And one day we were like, I think we should just record this as a podcast. And you guys have absolutely loved them. And in this episode specifically, we are getting into using your too muchness as your superpower. So if you have been someone who has maybe been called too much, maybe you felt too sensitive, too energetic, too ambitious, too high powered, too opinionated, whatever it is within your own life. And maybe that's a part of yourself that you feel like you've been having to play down. We actually go into our own personal experiences around being too much, because honestly, it's a reason why we connected. And share how you can actually use it as one of the best parts about you, because usually that thing that maybe triggers or activates other people, or that you feel like you've had to play smaller with in your own life, is actually the source of your purpose. So it's fun, it's real, it's raw. I hope that you get a laugh. Maybe something lands with you that will impact you for the rest of this day or even week. I hope it's exactly what you need. So grab your matcha, your coffee, your kombucha, whatever it is that you like, take it on your hot girl walk, listen to it as you are cleaning the house. And without further ado, let's head into the podcast episode.
There's no caffeine in decaf.
It still does things to me.
That's good. I mean, coffee does things to me too. So,
well, coffee does things to me too. Give me a full calf, I will be vibrating in this chair.
Oh, I've been on a kick where I just like having 2 coffees right now. And all my health friends, they're like, stop. And I'm like, it just makes me feel luxurious as I'm riddled with anxiety.
Makes me feel alive.
It really does.
Here's the wild thing. I barely ever drink decaf. I got it because I was feeling frisky. It's a Saturday. Yeah. And I'm drinking it. I've probably had about a third of it, and I can already feel it.
Oh my God, I love that for you.
It's crazy. So anyways, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, hey guys. I hope you have your coffee and you're sitting down and you're on a walk, and maybe it's decaf, maybe it's caffeinated, who knows? We go both ways, you know? It's like, if this is your first one, buckle in, buddy.
You know what Nolan told me today? We went on a coffee date this morning before recording this podcast. He goes, yeah, I could see you and Laura creating quite the community. I said, yeah, we already are the community. Of course we're doing that. And then I was just dying laughing. I'm like, yeah, just a community of weirdos who are too much.
Literally, no.
Welcome to your permission slip. Laura and I fell in love. It was love at first sight because we were both incredibly weird. In a sea of someplace where we felt maybe the need to button up a little bit more and to be this like conscious woman who has it all together. We were just like, hi, I'm weird, you're weird. Okay, let's be weird together. And it's a really beautiful way to live.
It really is. What was your catalyst to that? Like this moment of just like full liberation of, because you sparked that in me, right? Where I was like, I've always felt this way, where I'm like, I don't know. Like we make the running joke. We're like, I always feel too much. And like, that's been my biggest wound, because my biggest wound is abandonment. And in that is like my fear of not being able to belong because I'm too much. And now when I say that to you, you're like, I just never felt that way, but now you're making me more aware of the trauma that I probably so I'm always so curious where I'm like, how did you just get this confidence to be liberated and be you and be too much and help pave the way for people like me?
Dying laughing because I don't think I ever knew I was too much. Now in hindsight, now like this is the beauty of relationship, right? Is like you meet people who reflect different sides of yourself. And this is a conversation that Laura and I have so often. And I look back on my life and there's so many different pieces where I was like, oh yeah, like that is all like different experiences that were maybe labeled as being too much, right? Like I can remember as early as being in first grade and my table mates being like, you're too bossy. And I was like, guys, I just want to be friends. But there was very much like a clear right way and a wrong way that I had in my brain and like a vision that I had that I wanted to see happen. I think many high performing women can resonate with that. Maybe it was from childhood or maybe it's just later on in life. But that feeling of like being like having too much of a vision and an idea of how things need to go. So I remember things as early as that. And then there are stories that my parents will tell me around how growing up, our neighbors thought that I was a boy because I was so loud. And just like very girly, like pink and purple, favorite colors, always want to play dress up, always was with baby dolls, but had this like masculine, like, I just want to like get dirty and do different things and yell and be a little bit loud. And I look back at those instances and it's funny because I never grew up feeling like I knew those words, like, oh, I feel too much. It was just these little mini instances. I felt too tall. I felt too big. I didn't want to be the overly loud, obnoxious person. I didn't want to be too girly. I didn't want to be too smart. I didn't want to be too much. And so I kind of like kept myself in this box. But now looking back and having this beautiful reflection, it's like, oh, all of those things do kind of add up. And has given me a really beautiful reflection where it's like, oh, where are the stones that have been unturned within myself, right? Like those little pieces or insecurities that maybe I didn't have words for before. I just felt just slightly out of place, just slightly out of place with my table mates in first grade, just slightly out of place that I was taller than everyone, just slightly out of place that I felt like I was too loud and I didn't want to be that. So I toned it down, just slightly out of place. And so looking back, it's like, I feel like I've gone through my life in the past feeling that slightly out of place, but not fully having words for it. Does that make sense? And now later in life, to kind of wrap up this entire piece, later in life, I will say having core people who are able to reflect that and reframe it has been the wildest game changer. So not only, and I will say my mom is a really, really incredible reflection for this. And we've talked about this before where she'll own, she's like, yeah, Steph, you're a lot, but you're not too much. And she loves it and celebrates it. It wasn't like that growing up, but now we've done a lot of healing work together. We've been through so much therapy. She's an incredible person, you know, on her spiritual and personal growth journey, that she's able to recognize that and love it and honor it, even if it does trigger her at certain points, even if she does get overwhelmed, which sometimes we can bring that. And having you and having friends who are also high-powered women who are a lot, yeah, baby. And being in rooms and being in, we met in a mastermind, but being in courses in rooms where that's actually fully celebrated and is recognized as something that is a gift rather than something to take away. So I feel like the reprogramming has been in the later half of my life where it's like, oh wait, actually this is a really huge superpower. And now it's just about fine tuning and bringing more of it out and noticing those parts of myself from my childhood that were like slightly out of place, that maybe I didn't even realize I was dumbing down up until this point where now I get to walk through them. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. And because I love it, because it's something that your mom has now gifted me, is that where it's like, because you've paved that way for me, where it's like, you are a lot. Like, you're a lot of a human being and you go through 80,000 emotions in 3.4 seconds. And like, I love you for that. Like, it just means you're open and it's healing and it's things like that. And I've just really admired that about you, because you've had this, safety. You've had this like way that you navigate life of just pure authenticity of like, this is me, this is who I am, this is my heart, this is my soul, this is my drive, this is my tenacity, like these types of things. And I've just really admired that about you. So I love that.
I admire that in you as well. I think that that's what's been so beautiful about this relationship, is that there is that mirroring, because you bring that out in me too, right? It's like you, and then think that's why it was like so magnetic when we first met, of like, oh, like this is something I can be so much around, and it's never looked at like side eye, like what are you doing? Or like it's too much, or like you know that sensation when you're with someone. You actually posted a reel where she said this, where you're with someone, you're like, I could eat you for breakfast. Like in your energy, like if you fully let yourself all the way out, you would just, like we talked about it in the last episode, like steamroll them, essentially, not intentionally, but it's just like being around other people who reflect that back and have the capacity to hold it, which is one thing that my mom actually reflected back to me when she listened to one of our podcast episodes. She goes, yeah, Laura's an incredible person that also has that quality of being a lot, and she can hold you, and there's not many people who could do that. So thank you.
I love it. I love your mom. I love that your mom just adopt me. It's fine.
Yeah, she was like, I'll adopt Laura. We'll have her on the
love
podcast
it.
sometime.
It makes me feel so happy. We do have to have a girl chat with her.
Yeah, I want to hear though also, like, let's define this feeling, like being too much, right? Like what does that actually mean in your, and what does it mean for you in your own experience? And when have you been called too much or labeled yourself as too much? Because that's really what it is.
I mean, I've been called too much my whole life. Like that's been a thing. My parents aren't the most regulated humans on the planet. My mother was an addict. My dad is my dad. I haven't found the words to describe him yet to be in that lane. But they've always told me that, where it's just like, don't be too loud. Don't dress like that. Stop. Sit down. Like it's just been, I've been a wild child. Like I was the child that like, I'm just naked running around, and I'd put boxes down, and I'd put all my clothes on and take all my clothes off, and I'd be like, just look at me. Like, and my parents put a leash on me. Like they would like lock me in a room. Like they were like, tone this down, especially because I harnessed a lot of sexual energy from a young age, where I was just like, I love attention. Like something that was demonized as, no, don't do that. Like you're not supposed to like this so much. And I was like, no, like I'm a main character. I don't know how else to describe it. I'm meant to be a big deal, so I'm turning the volume up. But because of who my parents were and how, like if I look back at that, because my parents have a lot of unhealed stuff, I triggered them, and I still do. That's why, I'd have to love my dad from a distance than up close. And my mom, unfortunately passed away and didn't get to repair that. But I can look at these things going, I was just a kid with a lot of heart. I was a kid with a lot of emotions and a lot of stuff. And unfortunately, honestly, fortunately, I was blessed to be birthed into a family that taught me these lessons, because now I can go on and heal the stuff so that my kids don't have to go through that. But being too much for me was just all of that. Like it was said, I am too much. That's the biggest, one of the things why my dad and I don't speak. That's what he said to me, which is, you're too much. Like you think too fast, you speak too quick. Like, we can't keep up with you. And like, you think too deeply. That's been a thing my entire life. You think too much. Like, and I'm like, how do you not? Like, there's so much going on in the world. How do you not process it all? Or like feeling too much. Like if anyone that gets to know me, personally, like I am fully expressed. Like I make weird ass noises all the time. Like I skip because I have a lot of energy in my body. Like, and people be like, oh, you're dysregulated. No, I just have a really open heart. But when you have a really open heart, that can be seen as too much. And so, bullied in high school, you couldn't place me. I was the person that was an athlete, but hung out with the rejects, but the skater kids, smoking weed, being a star athlete, drinking, bouncing around, listening to rap music, listening to fucking emo music. Like, yeah, I couldn't be placed in a group, and growing up, people don't like that. And so all of those things, and I really saw it as a bad thing, because as a kid, you just want to belong, especially to your family dynamic. And that was my hardest one, because I could not belong to them. And I thought finally when I figured out human design, I was like, it's because I'm a projector. No, it turns out my entire family was projectors. And I was like, what is wrong with me then? Like, I don't get it. I'm just a black sheep. And, it's okay now, but that took a fuck ton of healing to just sit. And like this friendship was a huge catalyst, all of that, because I've never had people that really did accept all of that without being like, fix it. Like your being triggers me, so fix what you're doing. And now I'm surrounded by a lot of women. I was actually just talking with one of my very good friends, Avery, about this, where it's like, we have such strong personalities that there's no way I could run you over, just like what you were saying earlier. And I think that's what we're all seeking. But long-winded answer, because I'm me. It's that where it's just like, I think being too much is, you know, when you're fully expressed, and people don't, I don't like to say blanket statements like that though, but in the average human being world, like people don't like that, because you're supposed to be in this linear system that is predictable and I could place you.
Yeah.
And people like us and people that, you know, we are surrounding ourselves with, and the movement that we're making and being unplugged and unhinged and, you know, going on this journey, I think that's really hard, especially for creatives. Like your brain doesn't work the same way. Like it's already been so hard because your brain goes so fast, and that's the gift of being a creative. But you know, you can't be placed in a box, and a lot of society will tell you that that's wrong, when really that's a fucking gift.
Yeah. Do you think everyone is too much at their core if they were to fully express themselves?
Yeah, think of children. They're all too much. Like it's the most beautiful fucking, when I was a teacher, that's the thing that I love. Like a kid's just like, "Wah!" Like so excited to be alive, so angry at someone stealing their toy, so sad that their mom left them. Like they are way too fucking much. And I'm like, I love it. Scream louder. Like just do it. Like let it rip, let it be. And you know, I think if you actually stripped away all of the shit that told you it's not safe to do those things, you would remember who you were. And I think that's the gift of the work that we do, right? Like this is what we help align people to remember who they were before like they were told they can't be the human that they are. But yeah, I think so. What do you think?
Well, it's interesting. I think so, because I think you're exactly right. You look at any kid, and some form or facet of them is too much. It might not be that they're too loud, but it might be that they're too emotional. Or like I look back at my own childhood, my sister was so sensitive. And my family was like, you're too sensitive. You're not, like, she would like hear things and see things and like be so convinced that there was something there, and be like, no, like you're making it up. Like in her instance, she was too sensitive. I was too loud, right? Like we all have these different essences within us, or like the purpose that we really come here to fully express in this world. And that said, I do think that there are certain archetypes or essences that are more quote unquote societally acceptable than others, that we have taught are more palatable, more easily malleable than others. And I do see, like, when we talk about high performers, and you know, those women who have always been called bossy, or those women who have always had too many ideas, too many visions, too many things that they want to do in this world, they're too masculine, they're too feminine, like all of that. What I really see is that part of our purpose is to be all of that, and to either, like, it's gonna trigger people, but it can also activate them into their greatest potential, right? Like there are those of us who have that specific archetype where it is a lot. Like, let's be real, it is a lot for 99% of humans. And it's either going to trigger them into their smallness, and then they're going to project that onto you and say, well, you are dumb. You need to do something in this way. Like, you're the issue. I'm going to judge you because you are reflecting back to me everything that I know that I could be, but I'm not being right now. So I'm going to be triggered and project. Or it can activate them to be like, oh my God, that person's living big. I'm like that too. Oh my gosh, wait, I could do that too. I could be that fully expressed. I could be that in my purpose. I could be that loving. I could be all of that too. And we can activate the world. And I truly, in my core, believe that that is why God put me on this earth with such strong energy. Like I'm 5'11". Like I have a big presence, a big energy. And for so long, what I find so interesting because we always find a way to loop back to other points. What I find so interesting about you and your story and just who you are as a human being is that on some level, you haven't been able to contain being too much. Like I look at, and you might feel like you have, but I look at even you being in high school and being like, I'm gonna be friends with these people, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna, and how you dress, and like all of this, where it's like it will just ooze out of you, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
And when I look at, you know, my own experience and why I think I never fully labeled myself as being too much was because in my mind I did such a good job at containing it and dumbing it down and making it so, well, I'm going to be perfect so that I am not too much for anyone, and learning that at such an early age and adopting it as like, well, that's just who I am. Like, I'm not too much. What are you talking about? Like, that's not me. You know, that sort of sensation where I feel like the past like year and a half have really been starting to recognize, whoa, what are all those parts of myself that I've disowned? And as I step deeper into my purpose, like those are the gifts. Those are the gifts, right? If I am here, if God gave me all of this, it's like, well, those are the exact things that are going to either ignite people or also trigger people. And I've had a lot of experiences in the past year and a half, like as I'm coming more into myself, where those triggers are coming to the surface with people that I love around me. I love you. So much. Don't make me cry.
I just remember where it was like, oh my God, where we were sitting there. I don't even know. You were just like playing in your backyard, and like you called me and you were like, my wild child is coming out. And it was just like, just because I've known you through this version of like overcoming the perfectionism and like really stepping in and claiming like, not that you're too much, but this is you. Like, you know, there are no fucking rules. And like, can I just play, and can I just be, and can I be big, and can I have all my emotions, and can I do this stuff? And like, just hearing you say that just like made my heart smile so don't mind my face leaking.
Oh my gosh, my heart. And this is like what I find is so valuable, is that we've been able to like see each other through these different experiences and to see the unfolding. And I feel like every single time we reach a new level, whether that's through a milestone or just feeling something that we're feeling inside of us, it's like, thank you so much for playing a huge role in this. And we text each other that all the time. We probably sound like such fucking saps, which we are.
I think that's the gift of an open heart, right? Like a lot of people, I remember like I would feel like I wanted to like love and do these things, but I was like, oh, you can't do that. Like you can't. And it just like, even hearing the way you just put that, where it was like, you know, there's two ways of going about being too much. There's one where it's like you've had this stuff, but you've also, you know, were told certain things, so you did the quote unquote right thing, right? And that's one form. And then there's another where it's just like, fuck this, like, and you just break all the rules and you do all the things, but either like, and it's hard, like both are fucking hard. And I think that's why like more of like, for like my clientele and like where I'm at right now and why my brand has been shifting so much and doing what it's doing is just like sitting, because I've turned that where I'm like, I am a fucking lie. Like I have a story most people will never understand. I have things like this, and it's just like, and this is me. Instead of saying like, oh, it's wrong that your brain thinks this fast. You speak too fast. I don't have to listen to your podcast on 2x because you speak too fucking fast. Like it's like, instead of sitting there, I'm like, you're fucking right. Like, and it's great. And like, you know, that kind of reclamation, which is funny. A year ago, I was running the program Reclamation, and I'm like watching all those videos. I'm like, that's what this fucking is, where it's just like, you're sitting there and you're like, you know, cliches are cliches for a reason, or whatever the fucking quote is, where it's like, you'll always be wrong. You'll always be too much for the wrong people. And my biggest wish and what we're creating here and what we're like continually building is like, the people that are too much find their place, where it's like, you're not, you're really fucking not. Like, I don't feel that way anymore. And now I can show up even bolder. Like everyone will look at my branding and stuff and they're like, I could never, like that would make me, and they're like, I watch, exactly going back to what you were saying, they're like, I watch you do that and I wish I fucking could, like I wish I could. And I was like, so why not? Like or like the way that I dress, they're like, I would like wish I could do that, like it looks expensive and looks like it takes time. I'm like, this is from Sheen and it took me 15 minutes to get ready. Like I like to be seen, where it's one of those things where I'm like, I just declared that, like, you know, not from an egoic broken place, because there are the times in my life I can look back to, you know, I wanted to be too much in order to be validated, to heal my daddy issues and like all the kind of things where it's like, I'm doing things I shouldn't fucking be doing in order to get attention, versus now I'm like, this is just the remembrance of who I authentically am. Like this is truly me. Like, I don't care if it's like, I made a post where I was like, I'm not looking to be relatable. I'm not someone you can relate to. Like, I'm not looking to be liked by you. I'm looking to be liberated by me. Like, that's what I'm really looking at doing in this lifetime, in this season of my life, especially on the path of looking for love. Can I do that by still being liberated? Can I do that by still staying in my lane? And building on these things of like, what is my actual authentic code? Oh, I'm too much. Because you know that my whole thing was like, I don't want to show them my Instagram because it's this side of me and it's too much. And now I'm like, you know what? Fuck that. Like, I'm a badass bitch and here's what I do. And this is what I talk about. And here's how I actually present myself. And I'm not just this cute, like, version of me that can fit into the 9-to-5 engineer box. I'm actually this person that's a fucking alpha. And like, I will eat you alive if you don't know how to keep up. And that's not my problem. It's keep going, you know. It's like it's like turn the volume up, not in a bad way, but like in a, this is my authentic code at the end of the day.
I love that. If any of you guys are watching the video, I'm having just a conniption over here. Like, what's happening in my body? I was having a dance party. Oh my God, all of that. Like, yes.
Steph knows this has been really hard for me. Like, it has been so hard. I know, like, my online presence, and I think this is a thing people get tripped up. Like, there was a part of me that, like, my online presence, it wasn't me. Like, it was like, I'm trying to become this version of me and I'm feeling this disconnect and I'm not actually this big kahuna and I'm not this thing. And then finally I was like, you know what? Fuck this. Like, I'm here. And it was like, a really hard battle.
I'm just a big deal. I'm just a big deal. Like, what if you were to own that? You know, and I think it's so interesting. My brain is just going off with so many different instances. But it's like, what if you were to just own that you're a big deal? Because every single thing that you feel like is too much is truly actually your superpower. Like, it is the very thing that you are here in this world to be of and to be of service with, because it's the greatest thing about you. And if we can see that, like, it's a little mental shift where if you can see the exact thing that other people judge you for and be like, oh, good, that's a marker. That's showing me there's something there. That's showing me it's not actually personal. It's either triggering them or activating them. Cool. Let me look at that. Let me look at all the sides of myself. Those people think I'm too loud. Okay, interesting. I have louder. I have a strong and powerful voice.
Yeah.
And like, okay, how can I mold that and make it the most incredible part of myself? And if it triggers people in the process, that's fine, but at least I'm owning it. You know, at least I'm owning it. I had an experience with someone close to us where I was having a conversation with my mom, actually, and it was about someone who is close to us. And she was like, well, what do you think this person feels like? I was like, well, a lot of people will call them an asshole sometimes, but at least they own it. They own it of like, yeah, I can be an asshole, but I do my best and I have a kind heart and I show up in X, Y, and Z way. It's like, when you can own it, and I'm not saying you need to own that you're an asshole, you're a bitch, or like any of those things, but when you can own a side of yourself, it no longer has power when other people judge that, because you're like, yeah, I know it and I work on it. And I know that it's the greatest part of me, right? It's the most incredible part of who you are. And I don't think we normalize that enough.
We don't. I mean, we talk about this all the time, like between our dynamic, like say running retreats or bringing things together, like I'm the hard ass, right? Like I like come in hot and I'm like, I used to turn this down. And then recently in my programs, I'm like, but this is how I actually talk. Like I am a very direct, very straightforward person. And if you're not doing the right thing, I'm going to fucking call you for it, because that is what I do. Like that is just how I've been. But because I'm a woman and you're told to be softer and nicer and less direct and blah, 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 like in order you're a bitch. And finally I'm like, I am.
What if I am?
Like I am. I don't like, because I've been told, or like self-righteousness. I remember like that type of thing, or like you're cocky. And I was like, yeah. Like so one of my friends, like she complimented my back or like my arms, and I was just like, I know, right? And she's like, most people say thank you. And I was like, but I'm the one in the gym working my ass off every fucking day. And I was like, you're right, I can't be better at those things, but it's also funny to me to just be a cocky asshole. Like I'm inviting, and she's like, you're not fucking wrong. Like, yeah, more people should do that. Like my ex had taught me that, where he was like, you know, when I call you beautiful, just say you're welcome, because I get to look at you all the time. And it sounds like you started this.
Yes. Well, exactly. like, why did we make that wrong? And I
Yeah.
think that like there are two levels of it, right? There is the egotistical level where it's like you're looking at yourself to get validation, or you're saying those things out of a wounded place where you're not fully integrated in it, and you do come off as cocky and no one wants to be around that. But if you're a person where you're like, yeah, I love who I am. Like, yeah, I'm gonna look at myself in the mirror at the gym because who told me that that's a bad thing? Like, yeah. I'm gonna check out my biceps. I'm gonna check out like the work that I've been putting in, because when were we told that that was wrong? You know? And I was thinking about this the other day. I went to go meet someone for coffee, and I was like, I love to dress cute. Do I go that many places? Like, let me tell you, I do not go that many places. Laura will FaceTime me, and I'm getting like dressed to the nines. Like in a dress, like a full outfit. She goes, where are you going? Nowhere. Literally nowhere. Down to my office and down into Nolan's office so he can tell me how cute I look. But it's because it makes me feel a certain way.
Yeah.
I love it. I love expressing myself, even if I'm just going to the coffee shop. If I'm going to the fucking post office, you know, some days I don't, you know, some days it's sweats, right? But other days it's like, I just want to do this for me. And for so long, you know, in my own personal life, it was like, don't wear that. You know, don't dress in that way. Don't be that loud. Don't be, don't. Why are you walking like that? Like my mom and sister, I love them so much. We've talked about it since then. But I would like sway my hips when I walked as a kid because I had all this sexual energy in myself, and like I would shake my butt and I would do all these dances and everything. They'd be like, why are you doing that? And I was like, oh, well, I guess I shouldn't be that person. Yeah. You know? And now it's like, oh my God, if I could walk into a room and own it like that and walk that way, hot damn. That's power. You know?
It is. And it invites the power to the power. Like this is the funny thing. And I think I tell my clients this all the time. I'm like, I genuinely think I brainwash myself so well, because I don't like, my gene keys are, I am here to provoke. Like that is literally in my life's purpose, to provoke people. And so it was hard for a bit because I was like, everyone just gets so annoyed with me and I don't get it. Like, you know, or like men would leave. Like my biggest thing was like men would leave because it was constantly this, like, you're inspiring for how driven and passionate and whatever you are. But then it gets to this point of like, oh, but I have to leave because now it's triggering my inadequacy. So it's been a little bit more difficult with dating. But when I started to see this with my friendships and just like claiming this part, it invites my friend, like every one of my friends, if they see my branding, if they see the way that I dress, if they see the way my photo shoots are, if they see the way I handle myself at a coffee shop and how I'll just jump on stages and randomly grab a mic and like do these things and somehow orchestrate life to look a certain way, it invites the right fucking people. Right? They sit there and they're like, oh, wait, I want to do that too. Right? The wrong people will do whatever. And like the reason I think we don't want to be too much is we think we're going to get like hate comments, or someone's going to shame us, or someone's going to do these things. And maybe, and like I had the gift of like, you know, being ostracized from my family for certain things that I'm like, that's the worst it could get. And I'm still fucking okay. Like I'm still okay. So I might as well just be who I authentically am. And then in my mind, I'm like, when people ask me, like, how do you show up online? How are you authentic? How do you dress this way? Blah, blah. I'm like, I don't think about it. That's how. Like, I just do something that feels so natural. So anyone that's looking and going, yeah, but like, how do I crack that code? How do I do these things? It's like, what are you actually afraid of? Like, what are you people actually afraid of? Because the truth is, and people ask me this about Instagram all the time. They're like, yeah, like, what do your DMs look like? Like, are all these hate comments? I was like, I genuinely don't get them. Like, it's just not the energy, because I'm not doing anything that's provoking, right? I'm just being authentic. And if you are being authentic and you are inviting other people in, and that is your gift of authenticity, you can't go wrong there, right? Like you can't go wrong doing something with an open heart. If you're doing something from ego and approval and trying to like put your booty on the internet and get fucking approval so that you can, you know, get external validation, you're going to get some comments. But like the way that you present yourself, if you are actually grounded in who you are and authentic and open, and that's what we fear doing, because, oh my God, if someone fucking does a hate comment with that, like that's going to hurt even more. And it's like, you think that, but when it happens, it's sitting there and you're like, but this is me. Like, I would rather you reject me for who I authentically am than continually break my heart trying to be someone I'm fucking not. Like, this is just.
And then get hate comments regardless. Like, at some point, this is what's so interesting to me is I think sometimes as high performers, we have this idea that we can make sure that every single person understands you and that there is zero misunderstanding. I see this all the time with clients where they're like, I want to make sure that I say something in the right way so that X, Y, and Z person gets it. I want to make sure that I want to say this exactly perfectly so that this person isn't mad or this person doesn't judge me, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes you'll like mute people on Instagram. I see that all the fucking time. And I'm like, or like hide people from your stories.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting to me because like, imagine if you were on stage, regardless of if you want to be on stage or not, but just imagine you were on stage with 20,000 people around you. And you took the time after your talk to go to every single person in that stadium, 20,000 people, and say, I just want to make sure that you fully got what I was trying to say. And this is really what I was trying to say. And do you have any misunderstandings about it? Do you know how much time and energy that would take? You'd be there for literally at least a week, making sure that every single person fully understood it. There is no possible way that every single person is going to understand exactly what you're saying because they got their own noggin with their own stuff and their own interpretations, and you will never be in their brain. You'll just never be in it, right? And so it's like, on some level, we have to understand that you're bound to be misunderstood because you can't control what other people think, and they have to have their own process and their own soul evolution and purpose in this lifetime. And if you're a catalyst in that because you trigger them or because you activate them, beautiful. That's their journey. That's part of them. And you've got to respect a soul enough to be able to let them have that. And if you are a key player, whether it's through hatred or through love, that's a gift. You know, if we really zoom out on what we're here to do, which is all evolve together, if you give somebody the invitation to evolve, that is enough to me, you know, and if you do your part to stay in integrity with yourself, that is enough. But beyond that, it's like people will misunderstand you. So what I honestly find, and I feel like this is where you and I connect, is that what goes in tandem with being a lot is your ability to walk through misunderstanding and tough conversations. Because what I find so often with my clients, and honestly with myself and my own process, we're so afraid of misunderstanding because we're so afraid of confrontation and tough conversations, right? Like, if somebody did judge you, if somebody did read you wrong, do you believe in yourself to be able to walk through that conversation or to hold yourself if a conversation is not had? Do you believe in yourself to be able to do that? And that honestly only comes, I wish I could tell you, here's the 5-step process to having a tough conversation. And like, yeah, we can put structure to it. However, it really only comes from like, fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
Like, do some shit, express yourself, see what happens on the other side, and trust yourself that you are willing to invite a conversation if for some reason there is a misunderstanding and you do need to clear something up. You know, one of the things that I'm most proud of in my life is give me any fucking conversation, give me any tough moment, I can build a bridge. I can build a bridge that because I can understand somebody else, I can see where they're coming from, I can own my shit, and there is always more love on the other side, never less. It's one of the greatest gifts my mom gave me. I quote her all the time. She told me when Nolan and I were going through our breakup and it didn't make sense at all. It was a gut feeling that I had, and everything in our life looked perfect. It didn't make sense. Most people in my life were like, what are you doing? And I was like, I just know that I need to do this, not only for me, but also for us and for our growth. And going into that conversation, it was about to be the hardest conversation of my life. And she said, Steph, remember, there's always more love on the other side, never less. If you do your best to build a bridge in this instance, even if it hurts, even if it's hard, even if he doesn't get it, because he didn't get it. He didn't fully misunderstood the entire thing. And it was the hardest conversation of my life. There's always more love, never less. And what I can say on the other side, there was more love in the breakup than I could have ever imagined. And there's always more love on the other side as well. You know?
I love that so much because it's true. It's being able to hold being misunderstood. I think that's the best gift you can train yourself on. And it's not to say that you just go around like everyone on the planet right now saying whatever the fuck you want because you. Like, that's not what it is. It's sitting there and being receptive, going, how better can I communicate this with love? so
Yeah.
that both parties are benefiting from this, right? Like being too much doesn't mean just like go off unhinged and trigger the fucking world and be all these things and be a fucking asshole. That's your ego. It's
Yeah.
sitting there and being like, I'm going to say this, I'm going to do this. This is who I authentically am, but I'm doing that in consideration with who you are as well, because we're both in this human plane, and it's not just me focused, it's we focused. And so how can I start to build these bridges so that there's actually a space of love here? And how can I hold the duality that you might not understand, right? Like even with the shit with my dad, I still have so much fucking love for that man, right? Like I
Yeah.
still, because I can sit there and be like, I'm not wrong because you don't understand me, and I can't figure out the right way to communicate this effectively yet, but I am still holding you in so much fucking love. I still am doing this because I'd rather hold you with love from afar than resent you up close, because we haven't figured out how to actually have that proper communication that we need to have. That will eventually happen because I pray about it every single day, but it's being able to be like, okay, can I hold that I'm misunderstood right now without
Yeah.
making him a villain? Can I hold that? Can I hold that people are not going to understand parts of my heart sometimes in the way that this is, especially if you only know me from an external place? Like I'm going to be misunderstood. Can I hold that and still know my truth? Can I hold that there's two things, there's more than two things always happening at one time, and that it's okay? Like that is true strength. And I think that is, as we, close out this conversation, it's really looking Steph's crying. And
This is like when you're closing out a therapy session and you're like still crying.
so good, but it is one of those things that I think that could be the biggest gift. It's like, yeah, be too much. Yeah, like do that. But again, going back to be too much with an open heart, be too much and still be considerate of the other person, be too much and, just don't slut shame your too muchness. Do it from a space of like, I'm embodied and how can I hold the duality of this without making myself wrong? And that does take strength. Like you can't deny that. We both have gone through that where it's like, I am okay not being liked. Do I like it? Absolutely the fuck not. I would give anything for my dad's love, right? Like I all know that. Like, and I don't even think I talk about it on this podcast. I'm not sure how I feel about that coming out of my mouth right now, but like it's one of those things where it's like I would love that, but at the same time, can you, just because that's the biggest example of my too muchness, right? But it's like being able to truly fucking hold, yes, I'm a lot and I'm not wrong for that. And yes, you have your belief systems and you're for that. Like and there's love in that. And I can
So much
hold
love.
that without making you a villain, which is what we often want to do, is like, oh, I trigger them because they're not on their evolutionary path yet. And
Exactly.
it's like, no, they're on their evolutionary path. It's just not your path, baby. Like that's just it. And it's not they're wrong and you're right. It is just paths. And can you still hold those two things with love and grace and not have to turn yourself down or turn yourself overly up to piss them off and activate them? It's just being authentic and doing it from love.
I love that. I love that. I'm sitting over here just like, I'm gonna have a second after this, after this podcast.
1,000%.
Because I was thinking about how my dad and I have had, and you've been such a beautiful catalyst in all of this, because my biggest fear has been to be judged by my family and to really be judged by my dad, because we grew up, for me and my own personal experience, my dad was the authority figure, right? Like he's the man in the house. And so I was afraid of being judged by him among many other people, but him especially. I just wanted his love so deeply. So I wanted to be everything for him. And that's caused a huge, not a huge, but a big rift throughout my life, is wanting to do these right things to be enough for him, when I've always been too much for him, because we operate in different ways. And we've come to this beautiful place this past year and a half in me, naturally wanting to bring and just bringing more of myself to the table. We've had a little bit of a rupture that was necessary for our own growth, where it actually came to light. He's like, yeah, Steph, like you trigger me sometimes. Like you have X, Y, and Z qualities that I personally don't have. And that's a struggle for me. And so when I see that happen, I can sometimes misinterpret it. And the way he was able to put words to it was the most incredible thing. And now it's something that we're working on. But I was crying because I heard through the grapevine, meaning my sister, because we share everything, that one time they were having a conversation, and my dad shared, like, I'm so grateful for Nolan, because he does such a better job. I know. At
My favorite one.
holding Steph's too much, like a lotness. Those weren't his exact words, but he does such a better job at loving her than sometimes I can do myself. And it's like the greatest thing that brings just so much love into my heart, because it's like we're all fucking human. Like every single person you trigger, whether they are aware of it or not, like there is also still like they have work to do themselves too, you know? And it's such a blessing when we can resource power from other people within our own lives and let them be on their journey of figuring it out, because they likely are mad at themselves on some level that they can't fully love you. If they really do love you deep down, like they likely have that disconnect, you know? And it's why I find myself so grateful to have people who just reflect all of that power back, that there is never lack. And when we're fully resourced and in rooms and in relationships, that love and honor, even if it's just listening to this podcast episode and it gives you that feeling of like, oh my God, wait, this is actually my superpower. There's nothing wrong with me. Now I can breathe and let other people misunderstand and let them be on their path, because we're all trying to be human together, and always find that there's more love. Like love every single human being, whether they understand you perfectly or they misunderstand you, and let them be on their own journey.
I love it. And I love this conversation so much. And it really is just, it's safe. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, you know, there's always safe points that to be yourself. It's never a wrong decision to be all of you. And it's okay to be misunderstood. It's okay. And I remember I literally just lost it as Steph was saying that, because I still hold that, you know, to be loved the way Nolan loves her. It's such a gift to watch one of, you know, your best friends be loved in that way. And, you know, then you get to gift it to people like me. And it's so great. And
yeah.
Oh man, I love this. I didn't know I'd cry so much. I knew we were open-hearted today. What is one
so
thing?
Good.
It was so good. What is one thing you want the listeners to take away from this, besides crying with us?
Besides crying with us, like write down the areas, because you know we like to make it tangible so you can actually implement it. Like write down, whether you're very aware of it or it takes a little bit of digging, where have you felt too much? Like what part of yourself do you feel like has been ridiculed, ostracized, that you feel like you've had to play down? Write it down and start to recognize the absolute gift that is, that maybe even that's actually part of your purpose in this world. Like what has that brought you? And start to just plant the seed that what if it were actually the best part of you, and that were enough.
I love that.
What about you?
I want them to go, and with that, right, like taking note of what is that big, like, two part of you, I want you to go back and find out what wound that was, right? And what that actually gifted you.
Yeah.
Right? So how can you make it something I talk about in Alchemy of Love is like your sacred wound, right? Like if I didn't have this stuff with my dad, I would not be the woman I am today. I would not have as much love as I have. And so I could get mad about it, or I can look at the gift of like, holy pickles, the journey I went on because of this, you know, ostracizing and what have you. Like, I'm so thankful for it. Like, I would never change it for the world. And I think a lot of people can have, and they do, a lot of people have a lot of resentment toward their parents for not getting it right. And I have just deep gratitude for mine, because I would not be this version. And so can you go back into your story and find, you know, where can you pinpoint that, like, what is that too muchness feeling that you're feeling? And what was that wound that it was around? And how can you find the sacredness in that?
Beautiful. Yeah. Look at that tag team.
I love it. And then
I
come
love
over on
you.
Instagram and let us freaking know. My Instagram is It's Laura Patricia Martin.
Mine's at Stephanie Elsperman.
Yay. I love you.
I love you so much.
This
is so beautiful. I'll catch you on the next one.
Catch you on the next one, babies. Make sure you subscribe, write a review,
like, subscribe, review.
Love you.
Love you.